Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I want to talk about the top farmable cards to acquire in Puzzle & Dragons at this point in time in October of 2019. So Puzzle & Dragons is one of the most long-lasting mobile games in this industry, and over time the meta has shifted and changed. At least initially there was a much heavier emphasis on farmable cards. They played a much bigger role, and it kind of peaked, so to speak, when Miru came to her full fruition, where Heart Crosses reigned supreme, and I feel like Gung-Ho kind of reined in the power of farmable cards after that point in time because it detracts from people rolling in the rare machine. With that being said, there are still many other valuable farmable monsters to acquire at this point in time, and I want to use this article and video to elaborate and explain the ones that I feel are the most worth pursuing. Now, because these are farmable, everyone can in theory acquire these over time without spending magic stones. So I classify farmable monsters by something that can either be acquired from a dungeon drop, monster points, Palig machine, or monster exchange. Basically, you have to be able to acquire them without using magic stones or IAPing with real life money. So buying a collab orb skin with real life money doesn't count as a farmable monster. That being said, many of these farmable cards tend to have higher levels of investment required to fully max out, and that's basically to kind of keep them in check. Like, yes, they might rival some rare machine options, but if they require more resources to maximize, it kind of helps compensate for that. So I like to break down cards into these rough categories, and some cards will spill over into others. They may not necessarily be restricted to one type, but it's good to be aware that some cards can shift around, as well as the fact that this list should be taken with a grain of salt. These are my personal opinions, it's not the absolute truth, and use this as basically a conversational starting point, so to speak. But again, because these are farmable, we can acquire these over time. So the first category is a sub in a non-farming situation. So basically it consists of cards who can function in endgame content such as Arena, and by using them, it doesn't necessarily compromise the integrity of your team, so to speak. So the first one is Air, and they are a Descend boss, and in my opinion, the best farmable card at this point in time. This is because I find I use her on such a regular basis. She has reasonable weighted stats with a heavier emphasis on RCV. She has triple enhanced Heart of Awakenings, tape resist, and a valuable active skill. So with that in mind, she's able to function as a healing solution for your mono dark teams that have high HP and low RCV. While players can use Kuro Yuri, which is ironically another farmable option, Air only takes up one sub slot and no active skills either, because you don't need to use active skills to heal. You just simply match 4 connected heart orbs and you can be on your merry little way. If you inherit something with another enhanced Heart of Awakening or bonus RCV on top of her, she's able to improve that healing output significantly. And her flexibility in being used on basically most teams at this point in time makes her one of the most valuable subs, because right now the meta has definitely shifted towards teams with higher amounts of HP and lower RCV. For example, Phenom plus Ina is a high-end dark team that has 3 times health and 1 times RCV. So Air is by far the cleanest healing solution if you don't want to dedicate more sub or active skill slots. With that being said, Kuro Yuri is another incredible healing solution. They cost 750,000 monster points and are available through the Gung-Ho collab. And they are able to provide a 40% maximum health heal for 6 turns on a 12-turn cooldown along with a single turn of haste. This allows you to actually create a loop or a system in which you have 2 Kuro Yuris and you basically have you have the ability to heal 40% of your health every single turn, and this never changes or breaks unless overwritten by some sort of debuff. And this is quite exciting because when you think about it, it's very hard to die. When you have 150,000 health, let's say to make math simple, you heal 60,000 health every single turn. You are probably going to match some hard orbs as well at the same time, so you're able to heal a sizable amount with very little effort. It can help trivialize many encounters. It helps those high health, low RCV teams function better. But the main drawback is you must dedicate 2 active skill slots, as well as Kuro Yuri not having the greatest weighted stats or the greatest awakenings overall. But amusingly, we can utilize another incredibly strong Dark farmable card. This is one reason why Dark is such a strong color at this point in time. They have arguably the best farmables for endgame content. But Halloween Mine is a dungeon drop from the Halloween event, and she has a 1 turn based cooldown, 2 team HPs, cloud resist, and a single jammer and blind. This gives her great flexibility because she provides valuable resists. She also gives you cloud, which again can solve some problems. The team HP adds sizable amounts of bulk, but because she has a 1 turn based cooldown, you can utilize her as part of a Kuro Yuri system or just to carry a valuable inherit. Kuro Yuri only has a 12 turn cooldown, so by inheriting onto mine, it becomes 13. Even with that, the haste allows you to actually create a loop, and one of the most popular ways to actually utilize this is using a Kuro Yuri as a sub and then a Halloween Mine as another sub and inherit the second Kuro Yuri on top of Halloween Mine. This is important because now you have tape and cloud resist covered. Kuro Yuri's tape, Halloween Mine is cloud. You have a single jammer and a single blind and a bunch of team HP. This gives you that added bulk, which again turns into more healing, and it just creates a very powerful self-healing system that is really hard to kill. You may not necessarily be super fast because you have less orb changes available, but not dying is kind of the goal of this game. Next is Mutt, and she costs 750,000 monster points. And initially I dismissed Mutt because I found her a little underwhelming because we didn't have a real place to actually utilize her on. But if you fast forward now to today, the meta is now heavily dominated by teams with high HP, low RCV. So like Air, she provides you enhanced healing orb and becomes your healing solution for mono water teams. While you do have Mel as a rare machine option, Mutt is farmable. They have higher weighted stats. They also have a 4 turn active skill, which creates water orbs, which can be invaluable for Beach Varroa teams. And in fact, Beach Varroa teams basically sweep through content by just matching 9 connected water orbs. They'll kill everything. They get a gazillion combos. They can proc their VDP. So Mutt provides that healing and fast orb changing when you need it, as well as having reasonably high weighted stats at the same time. Solid healing solution all around if you don't have a Mel. Next is Odin Dragon, and they cost 300,000 monster points. And for the longest time, I considered them the strongest monster point purchase to make, mostly because we lacked incredibly powerful cards that were this level, so to speak. We did not have any strong, we had very few options for full bind and awoken bind clearing, and that made him quite valuable. You could use him on a wide variety of teams, like he had that light sub attribute, so things like Edward could still utilize him. They had nice weighted stats, but at this point in time, we have so many more options for awoken bind clearing, and that niche is definitely narrowed down because it's much more open-ended. Furthermore, we don't have much need for the actual bind clearing necessarily because most things nowadays come naturally with bind immunity. But with that being said, he is an easier purchase to make, costs less monster points, and the only hurdle I can truly foresee is having newer accounts having difficulty acquiring a Gaia Dragon. Next is Nidhogg, which is a descend drop, and Nidhogg has the capacity to create a row of fire and a row of jammers, as well as a single turn of haste. This creates another self-forming system where you basically can use Nidhoggs every single turn, or other cards if you play in the JP server. But the point of the matter is you're able to create a row of fire, jammers, and basically fully activate certain leader skills, and basically you just have ammunition every single turn. You don't really die. Amazing overall. And he does have applications on our Halloween Madoo as well as Valentine Sonia teams, but I feel like he'll come into his true potential when Rao from the Fist of the North Star is released, or updated so to speak, because he has the built-in follow-up attack damage, and with the Nidhogg system you're able to kind of make a fire row, kill something, advance to the next floor, ignore resolve. Next category is inherit or assist or inherits. And Puzzle & Dragons has definitely become much more complex. Initially, we only had a leader for subs, friend leader. Now we have the same leaders and subs, but all of them can carry an inherit. And with these inherits, you're able to customize the active skills, but at the same time, you also can gain weapon assists, which give additional awakenings. This makes team building much more dynamic and complex, because you basically have 12 different components, so to speak, overall, and you want to find synergy and find the best possible team. So having farmable cards act as valuable weapon assists are important because it gives players an extra opportunity to build their team when pushing through harder content. And the first one I want to highlight is the Trojan Horse, who costs 4 Rainbow Event medals. And the Trojan Horse is one of the best farmable cards as well because they provide 20% jammer, poison, and blind resist along with a single time extend, while also having a relatively high base cooldown. A higher base cooldown is useful because it gives you a bigger window to use your base card's active skill and not let it charge up to something that is possibly less synergistic. And basically the idea is with 20% resistance on all metrics, you're able to utilize other weapon assists to acquire 100% to fully counteract these mechanics. There are sexier weapon assists available, but for the most part, they tend to be tied to rare or harder to acquire collab or seasonal cards. So this makes a great option. I use my Trojan horses on a regular basis. I have 3 on my account, and I'm actually quite happy I do because I can use multiple on a team or switch the inherits around with less worry. Next is Halloween Pumpkin, which only was just released a few days ago, and they've quickly become one of my favorite weapon assists because they have 40% blind resist and 2 enhanced dark orbs, along with the ability to overwrite the jammer or poison skyfall debuffs placed in the higher level arenas. So in the higher level arenas, there's a 50% chance there will be a floor that creates a 15 turn poison skyfall debuff, and that can be lethal. It's almost suicidal to enter a dungeon with most teams without a way to counteract this mechanic. And the Halloween Pumpkin can do that because by giving yourself a Jammer Skyfall buff, you overwrite the debuff. Furthermore, the 40% blind resist has beautiful synergy with something else that has either say 60% from the Monster Hunter or another 40% weapon and find 20% say through a Trojan horse. It just gives you more team building options because now you're bringing an inherit that you need to have, but not necessarily compromising your resistance capabilities. Furthermore, they also have 2 enhanced Dark Orbs, which does provide meaningful damage bonus. Next are Dorothy Shoes, which are another Descend boss. They're similar to the Trojan Horse in that you have 20% Jammer and Blind Resist, but they also have the ability to greatly increase the healing potential of your team overall. This is because they have an enhanced Healer Awakening along with basic RCV and then Team RCV, so if you place this on top of something like your Air, who already is a healing solution, you make them perform even better. And that is important because when you are forced to heal back large amounts of health on a regular basis, being able to augment your healing card with significantly more RCV can be quite meaningful. Next is Gazlo's Weapon Assist. It's a rare spawn from Alt Arena 3, which is a brand new dungeon as well, but it's also the hardest dungeon we have currently available. So very few players are able to actually clear it at this point in time, and if you are able to clear this dungeon, you can possibly not necessarily need this weapon assist as much, which is kind of unfortunate because this weapon assist, if you could acquire it through easier means, could definitely help you progress. But at the same time, it has the same 60% poison resist as a Raytheon weapon assist, but it does have a shorter base cooldown, which means it charges up more quickly, and and it's much more difficult to acquire by comparison. Next is Amon's Weapon Assist, which is 750,000 monster points, and it provides a single skill boost. And this might seem a little underwhelming at first, but for ranking dungeons and farming builds, being able to have just one more skill boost can help guarantee those key active skills already in time, and you have more flexibility of team building compositions. It is a bit of a niche situation, of course, overall, and they are definitely marred by the fact that they have a 7-turn base cooldown, but when unskilled. But the thing is, it is farmable. I've bought Amon for weapon assist as well as leadership usage, and I found them to be both great purchases. Next is Typhon from the Gung Ho Collab Palling Machine, and they provide team HP as well as super follow-up attack. The team HP does add nice bulk, but with super follow-up attack, you are able to form a 3x3 box of hard orbs and actually trigger and basically deal damage after matching orbs to eliminate void or eliminate resolve spawns. While this is less efficient compared to a follow-up attack, because a follow-up attack requires only 5, this has great applications with bicolor boards that utilize hearts plus one other color. With those bicolor boards, there's a very small window where a follow-up attack can be made alongside of the VDP. The distribution is quite narrow. By comparison, with the double boxes, you have a much wider range of acceptable board distributions. In fact, you can go 18, 12 in either direction, and you will still have the ability to make the 2 boxes and have at least 5 combos. If used in conjunction with something like Zila's active, which gives +2, you hit 7. This, with Hello Kitty, makes you go up another 2 as well because of her leader skill. The point of the matter is, it's a way to add super follow-up attack for those monocolor teams that actually have those bicolor boards with hearts plus another color. And while there is better options out there, this is the most farmable solution available. Next is Hackaroo card, and they give a Balance Killer, Jammer, and Poison Resist. So Balance Killer is a relatively niche killer. There's not many key spawns that we need to have it against, but having that as an option is definitely valuable. And the extra 20% poison and jammers can make it so you're not necessarily compromising your team composition to actually include this weapon assist. I don't necessarily use it in arenas, but for ranking dungeons, I found them quite helpful to have. Next is Helen, and they have a single attack wall above 80% and 2 enhanced water orbs. The water orbs are definitely nice if you played that color team, but the single attack wall above 80% provides the owning card 1.5 times attack damage. And this is definitely less potent compared to 7 combo or attack wall below 50%, but the thing is, this damage is still a meaningful damage bonus. If you use it on your card that has all the killers or the card that has the VDP, they're much more likely to actually execute their specific spawn they're meant to counter because you have an extra 1.5 times damage. Niche overall, but again, it's useful to keep it in mind. Next is Satan, which is the only weapon assist I believe in this list, and it's because he has a truly interesting kit overall for dark farming teams. He has a 300 times button attack to a single enemy and also reduces your health to 1. So you inherit this on top of a co-op boost card or something of incredibly high attack, and they're able to deal very large, meaningful damage to potentially button through one floor, and then they also create an entire board full of dark, which you can swipe. So being able to kill 2 floors with 1 active definitely is valuable, but he also has negative 9,999 RCV, or even basically negative 12,000 at level 110. And that means he's able to basically prevent you from actually healing, which is important for teams that want to be below 50% health to trigger these awakenings on a regular basis. So by nuking your health to 1 and preventing yourself from healing up too much, you stay in this sweet spot as well as having that massive burst board of dark orbs. This is definitely most applicable in farming content for mono dark teams, but it is important to have. And even though he doesn't provide awakenings, still provides that interesting utility through the negative RCV. Next is the Pocket Watch, and they provide you with 10 seconds of Change the World. This basically freezes time and allows you to move orbs freely, and it will prevent matches from occurring until that 10 seconds has elapsed. Sounds kind of redundant, but it's a way to completely counteract spinners, because spinners will change the color of the orb at various intervals, and being able to freeze time, you're able to actually move orbs freely and not actually have anything spin. It's a one-time solution to these spinner orbs, but it can be invaluable under the right circumstances. And it does follow under a similar category of Bufu, because Bufu provides a full board lock, but Bufu requires significantly more investment by comparison in terms of skill ups to make it at least a feasible active to charge up, and Pocket Watch requires much less investment by comparison. And the final weapon assist I want to highlight is Agendine. And this functions similarly to the Halloween Pumpkin. It's basically just a worse version. You only get 1 enhanced fire orb, 1 blind resist. Nowhere near as powerful, and the Jammer Skyfall buff, it lasts for 3 turns, not 1, so it's less ideal, but if you for some reason don't acquire a Halloween Pumpkin, which you should really do, this is another possible option, but it does at least provide a different color, and maybe if Mono Fire becomes a true powerhouse, maybe the extra enhanced fire orb and the on-color can provide some benefit. The next category is skill boosts. Basically, these are used in farming content or ranking dungeons where you need many skill boosts on a short charging active skill to bring the correct types of actives. Basically, Whaledor has 5, Tengu has 4, Orpharion and Despharion have 4 with super awakenings. They come in different colors, they have different weighted stats. You just mix and match based on what you need for your team composition. All 4 of these are great to have. Next are the leaders. So these are leaders that have meaning, and Amun is an incredibly powerful farming leader because they provide 10,000 times attack when matching exactly 7 combos and leaving 3 or less orbs on the board with no skyfalls. It's a difficult leader skill to activate from a regular board, but if you use either a bicolor board changer or a mono color plus double row maker, you can quickly solve these into 7 combo patterns and also leave the required amount of orbs. This basically allows you to blast through content with billions or millions amounts of health with relative ease. And this has become quite invaluable for training Arena 2, and Amun is definitely one of the best leaders to bring in this dungeon because you just load your team with bicolors and have enough time extend, or use Tengu for leader swapping shenanigans potentially to survive those hits. But the point of the matter is you are able to deal spectacular amounts of damage with an activation clause that is much more manageable. Furthermore, they still retain 100 times attack with dual leaders when leaving 3 or less orbs on the board, so a full swipe of one color does 100 times damage, might be enough to actually advance to the next floor. Next is Zeus Verse, and they provide 225 times attack when full health. This means a single combo can deal large amounts of damage if you're able to stack the correct color. You use TPAs, you use attack while above 80%, or you use killers, and that those owning cards can deal large amounts of damage. These are great in farming applications as well as ranking dungeons, where you need sometimes just a single specific card to deal large amounts of damage. Furthermore, he also has a 35% true gravity, which enables him to possibly use on cheesing teams. The last leader I want to mention is Pixel Echidna. She's nowhere near that powerful compared to other options, but it can definitely be the start of a fire farming team, because if used with Machine Goemons as subs, you are able to provide modest amounts of damage, but she has free follow-up damage built in, which means you don't have to worry about resolves, assuming they don't have exceptionally high defense where the attack gets reduced down to 0. But the idea is you use Echidna paired with something that does more damage, and you're able to possibly swipe your way through various content. There are other options available, but it's worth mentioning because she is at least a relatively early boss drop, and it might be useful because you never have to worry about follow-up attack at the same time. And then the last category is a sub from a farming point of view. So farming differs from non-farming, not just from the name, but because in a farming context, you're just trying to clear a dungeon as fast as possible many times in a row. It can become numbing overall, potentially, because oftentimes it involves swiping, but the point is you want to make it as efficient as possible, require the least amount of steps, least room for error, and these are the types of subs that tend to make that happen. They tend to have active skills that are impractical for content like Arena, that are often quite reliant on skill boosts. They're kind of like a one-time thing, and then you never really use them again for that dungeon. So the first is Machine Goemon, which is a technical boss, and they provide a full mono board of fire and either unlocking orbs or providing a single turn of haste, depending on which evolution you chose. Furthermore, he has strong personal damage awakenings through Rose, as well as a machine killer, and multiple Machine Goemons can obviously amplify this damage, so to speak. And even if you're using Pixel Echidna as a leader, you still could possibly do meaningful amounts of damage. Next is Zeus Dios, who is kind of the OG farming leader because he was the first truly viable mono board changer that we could have, and it kind of popularized the idea that every single player can farm dungeons exceptionally fast in co-op by using Zeus Dios and swiping when using Liu Bei as a leader. There were servers that dedicated to using Awoken Liu Bei. It was just such an interesting time in pad. And while Zeus Dios is definitely weaker compared to Machine Goemon or Machine Noah, many older players have him already made, and he's much easier to acquire by comparison because he drops from his own dungeon, which is quite easy. His skillet material also drops from Hera Is, which is again another easy dungeon to overcome. Next is Machine Noah, who is the newest technical boss actually, which makes her a little bit stronger than Machine Goemon because she does have more personal damage. And she does have synergy with teams that like to be below 50% health because they have a self-harming 50% health cut or orb unlock depending on the evolution you chose, along with a full mono board. But the thing is, Machine Goemon has been out longer. It's a strong likelihood that most players have finished Machine Goemon and have less motivation to make Machine Noah. For myself, I have no real motivation to make Machine Noah. I have several Machine Goemons done. It's not necessarily needed. The difference is relatively small, and Machine Goemon was definitely easier to farm as well. Next is Nergigante Hunter, which is from the Monster Hunter collab as one of the male hunters. And they provide a multi-target button that scales with 40% of the team's total wood and dark attack, which means dupes of himself because their co-op boost awakening means that they actually deal large amounts of button damage to multiple enemies. So this is obviously only applicable if you actually truly love the button farming aspect of this game, and you also need to have duplicates of himself to truly take advantage of this button. But the thing is, it's quite efficient, it's amazingly powerful, it's worth being aware that it does exist. And speaking of buttons, I want to mention Alistair, who requires 4 Rainbow Event Medals from the Gung Ho collab. And they come with double co-op boost and triple skill boost, so they can inherit a strong button, something that has like say 250 to 300 times damage, and deal very large amounts of damage because of their grossly inflated stats. Furthermore, those 3 skill boosts and a 10-turn cooldown makes it quite easy to actually have those active skills charge up in time. And the final card I want to mention is Manticore, which is a Descend boss. They're relatively easy to acquire. They don't have to play through exceptionally hard dungeons to achieve. And they have 3,318 attack before pluses, and they also have a co-op boost Awakening. So similar idea to Alistair in that they are able to function as a powerful button base, but they come from a Descend dungeon, so it may or may not be easy to acquire. But again, it's worth being aware that this is a potentially powerful button available. So, in conclusion, the Puzzle & Dragons is an incredibly old game that has so many different monsters available, and it still does have some strong farmable cards. They may not be necessarily as dominant as they were when the game first came out, but the thing is, that's just the way it's going to be. And because these are farmable, you are able to acquire these at your own pace at some point in time in your pad career. So, based on this list, let me know who you think is most powerful, or if I actually missed someone out completely, and do you agree with me that you think Air is the strongest farmable card at this point in time, or do you have a personal preference towards someone else? Hopefully you all have a fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck of your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.